This podcast is part of the Game and Entertainment Network. Visit tgenetwork.net to find the latest episodes from all our shows.
It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Agronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 146.
Are you sure?
I am sure. I checked it. Tonight I'm joined by Ashgar.
Hello.
Grace.
Hello.
Kodra. Hello. Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
Hi there.
So tonight we are going to... okay, heads up, this is going to be a weird-ass show. I'm just going to say. This is supposed to be the Final Fantasy 15 Game of the Month show. However, some of us have not beaten the game and are still enjoying the game. So at some point in the night, we're going to duck out, including myself. And we will... I will come back, but probably I don't know if anybody else will come back. So it's going to sound a little weird, probably. I chose this game because I still really, really, really like the game, and I am enjoying it. And I thought, oh, hey, we should talk about this because we really kind of wanted a big show to talk about this. But I also, I don't know, like this whole thing of trying to get this through this game for the purpose of recording a show has been kind of a fraught experience for me because there are really two games here. There is the game that actually tells story, and then there's the game that I really like.
There's the main storyline, and there's all the side quest stuff.
Yeah.
Hinterland.
For me, this game has a Hinterlands problem.
Oh, you think it's a problem? Interesting.
I enjoyed the game much more when I actually, was working on the plot rather than
all
this
no
latest nonsense.
I tried to, okay, I don't know, like, I sat down, I'm like, okay, I am going to ignore everything but the main plot. And, like, I made some progress, but it was also the absolute most miserable time ever for me. Like, having to walk past, quest givers and say, no, I can't look at your stuff because now I have to go be serious. And it's weird. Like, I loved the first experience with this game where I was just running amok and carefree and killing things and doing side quests for people. But then when it came down to actually doing purposeful content, no, it wasn't for me. And it's not that the purposeful content wasn't for me. It's just forcing myself to do story content was not an enjoyable experience. Like, if it allowed me to get to the story content whenever I was ready for it, I've enjoyed, like, the last little bit of story that I've done, but it was only after piddling around with chocobo farmers and, running amok on the marsh side, collecting red frogs and...
Yeah, there's frogs that need catching and chocobos that need rescuing and crops that need harvesting.
For me, the game felt pretty directionless until like chapter 8-ish, and you have a whole bunch of stuff you can do, but some of it's kind of interesting and some of it's kind of not.
And it's easy to get really bogged down in that stuff. Like, when I was initially really into the game and wandering around and doing stuff and, like, doing hunts and doing random quests for people, and, like, suddenly I just felt like, oh, I'm not getting anywhere, I'm not doing anything, like, and it's totally on me, right? Like, I just got distracted by all of this random stuff to do without moving the story forward. And, like, it was enjoyable enough, but I probably should have spent more time just really trying to motor the story. Although, like Belle said, I don't usually like to play this sort of game that way. Like, forcing myself to just adhere to the story is not really any more fun than getting completely bogged down in side quests and not making any progress. Like, I need a nice middle ground where I feel like I'm making some progress, but also feel free enough to wander off into the weeds. Something interests me over there.
This game actually caused me to think about that quite a bit. Like,
yeah,
the game I'm referencing is, of course, Dragon Age Inquisition, where you have a ton of stuff to do in the Hinterlands, and most of it sucks. like really, really sucks. Really boring and not that interesting. And compared to like, say Skyrim, where you have the main storyline, which you can basically ignore if you so choose. You also have side stories that are actually interesting, like the entire, Mages Guild or Thieves Guild side quests. And for the most part, it's hard to tell in FF15 which category those quests fall into until you start doing them.
This is true. Like, I think the frog catching quests may ultimately lead into something really interesting, but I'm not sure yet. I do know that eventually she starts sending you to actually kill things.
Right. And I assumed it was something big because it announced it like it was a new kind of content that you were sitting down. Like it kind of reminded me of like when you started the Hildebrand quest. Like it was a sequence of things that you're just about to start.
That said, I have reached the point where there's like I shudder a little when I hear frogs croaking.
I mean, so I did not actually get that far in all of those things. I did a lot of stuff in the hinterlands, I felt like. The main story area, and I was mostly having fun, and I was like, okay, eventually I wanted to push on past it, and I did. But some of the reason I did was because I was starting to get quests that were like just asking me to. I kept doing the chef in Hammerhead's quests, the guy who looks like Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah.
Yep.
And asks you to go a really
eventually
long way.
It's like, well, no. Eventually, he's like, "Oh, hey, there's this ingredient I need you to get from a hunt." And I was like, "Okay, I can go do that hunt." And then I go in there, and it's like, "This hunt requires rank 8." And I'm like,
"Okay,
yeah,
won't be doing that anytime real soon."
I'm not that, and I'm not even close.
And then I was starting to research like what I would need to do to get my hunt rank up there, and I was like, oh, that's like a 30-hour grind at best. No.
So I feel like I hit the stride of how the game wanted me to play it really, really early, because I would do a handful of side quests and then continue the main story when the level of the side quests I'd gotten had started to exceed my main story. And so I was constantly moving through chapters, but also doing side quests. Like I sort of intentionally forced myself to not get bogged down in side quests, and always keep the story moving forward. And I hit a point where I became invested enough in the story where I was like, okay, I'm going to finish up my side content here, and then I'm just going to do story because I want to know what happens.
Yeah, that's basically what I've been doing, and I think I'm pretty close to that point where, I'm that invested in the story.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not invested in the story at all right now. I mean, I am invested only so long as like I know what's going on because of the movie, but I'm not like super invested in the story.
I'm actually surprisingly invested in the story for as hard as I have basically bounced off of things. Like I really want to see what happens with this story. And I guess maybe the thing that I want to talk about for a minute is the combat.
Oh,
because the combat is basically why I have bounced so hard. And so I played this game a ton when it came out, and did a bunch of side quests and like exploring, and like got just not very far into the game, but spent a lot of time with it. And I never really felt like I had figured out the combat in that whole time. And then I took a break from it and came back to it when, Belle picked it for the game of the month, and couldn't remember even as much as I had barely known when I was playing the first time around. And now I was sort of in the middle of some story stuff and in the middle of a place in the game where stupid random enemies were being thrown at me fairly frequently, and the combat was
droids from the heavens.
Really frustrating. Yes, exactly.
And
so
the Trade Federation, I mean Empire, really hates you.
I feel like the game totally drops the ball on its combat tutorial in much the same way every single Final Fantasy game I've ever played drops the ball egregiously on its combat tutorial.
Yes.
Like,
fully agree.
Terrible.
I like the combat system, but it's bad at teaching you its combat system.
Yeah. Like I've reached level 42, and I feel like only within the last 5 levels or so have I finally really gotten the hang of the combat system.
So
I beat the game at level 41.
I beat the.
I'm doing all the side quests.
I sort of stopped playing at level 96, and there were distinct points where I would spend AP and suddenly the combat would like start.
Yeah.
I buy an upgrade and suddenly like there are 3 specific upgrades I can think of where combat went from I don't really get this to oh wow, this is amazing.
Wow, that's
Like,
interesting. I never got there.
And they're not intuitive at all. Like, they're not even a little bit intuitive.
Well, the upgrades all feel like nonsense to me, other than like the one that was really game changing for me was like when I gave everybody the ability to use first aid. That was huge.
Yeah, that's super
Like,
helpful.
the trees that make combat more fun and more functional and make you more powerful are not the least bit intuitive.
So what are
Curious to
those
hear what your
trees?
opinion on those are, actually.
Yeah.
I need to look them up because I don't have them memorized.
I do, in fact, never remember what is in what tree.
Yeah.
The upgrades
Like, I
I'm
know-
thinking of were the air warp one.
So yes, there's the whole air warping
branch thing.
There's a whole branch that is about warping around in midair while melee combat, and
right.
like
And that is
it's
once I could do that, holy crap, that's amazing.
yeah. That tree is utterly transformative. Like, it changed the entire way I played combat in that game. It was incredibly fun. Like, that tree there needed to be an automatic unlocks tree, like just stuff that you unlocked as you went through the game or as you leveled up, and that needed to be in it because if you don't spend points in that, combat is rubbish.
I was about to say, I never spent points in that, and combat was miserable.
Being able to warp around in the air just back and forth between things, it's glorious.
Interesting.
You go from it goes from this feels like a weird bad controlling Dark Souls to oh no, this is not Dark Souls at all. This is like
Cry.
It's Devil May Cry meets Mario Galaxy.
Yeah. So like I have to assume that this was that I was only able to do this because I had invested in that. But
yeah.
So at the point where you get attacked by the crazy dragoon chick, like she had leapt way up into the air, and I locked onto her and warp struck up to her.
Yeah.
And we just had this glorious aerial combat.
Yeah.
Like it went on forever and was beautifully choreographed. I mean, it almost looked
amazing.
Like a cinematic. It was gorgeous.
You can
yes,
fight...
unless you heavily invested in that tree, you fall back down after a little while.
Yeah, and it sucks. But actually being able to do that, you can reach the point where those, if you've watched Kingsglaive and you've seen how cool those guys look when they're fighting, you can do that.
Yes.
You can do that and it feels amazing.
Like that fight with her, that was in fact the point at which I finally felt like I got the combat system.
Yeah. And there's fights later on where like I'm blipping around, I'm fighting like 10 or 15 enemies at a time, and none of them can land a hit on me because I'm just blipping from one to the other faster than they can react. And I feel just crazy powerful and super awesome.
I will say the parry system seems to make is like, I would give it a 50-50 chance of when I press down the like button to dodge and then parry, of it working. Like, oftentimes I see the quick time event pop up and then like the attack happens, but I've apparently moved out of the way, so I take the damage rather than actually dodging or parrying the attack.
This is one of those poorly communicated things because you need to hold the button.
Yeah, you need to hold that button. It's not a tap.
I do hold that button. It's
not not well communicated.
Yeah.
While you're holding the square button, you will dodge almost everything. There are some attacks you can't, or parry if it's attacked with a parry prompt, unless you are in the middle of an attack animation.
Yep. Yes. Or knocked down.
When you dodge AP, or it consumes MP.
Unless you have the blink upgrade.
Or have the upgrade that lets it like not use any MP if you tap it right when it like would hit.
Yeah, that's the blink upgrade.
Oh, okay, that is the blink upgrade. I think there's another one that reduces it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Like light phase, which makes it cheaper, but
And it'll burn through your MP really quick if you are not careful and dodging a lot of things.
That's when you go hang on the wall for a moment.
Yeah.
I also feel like a lot of the enemies had way too much hit points.
So that is the other part that was transformative to me, because I felt like every fight took forever and was just me beating up on bags of hit points until what tree did I pour into? Until I poured a ton of stuff into the teamwork tree.
Yeah, all the teamwork stuff is
basically.
I think that's both that and all the stuff that that lets you earn AP for doing things are the two trees that I've basically filled out completely.
Yeah,
apart from the most expensive things at the very end at this point.
I think that the most important upgrades in terms of the game being enjoyable.
Death blow.
When
you make something vulnerable, one of your teammates comes in and murders it.
Yes. Like, all of the things that make your party stronger make combat feel much faster and much more responsive, because they're constantly doing things and constantly helping you out. And Ignis has a tech ability that is the only tech ability that I ever used.
That's funny. I used a whole bunch of different techs.
I use them all, yeah. I'm always switching between them.
I use a bunch of
amazing.
Which one?
Gravisphere from Prompto.
Suck everybody in together.
No.
Set them for an AoE.
Regroup on Ignis is the only tech that Ignis ever used.
I use regroup a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Regroup is
pretty good.
Like potions. I don't need to use potions. I use regroup.
I did use before I had, a good grasp of how weaknesses worked. I was using enhancement.
Yeah.
And let Ignis figure out how weaknesses worked for me.
But yeah, like, making your party stronger makes fights much, much faster, because Noctis is not the most damaging member of the party by a decent margin.
Yeah.
Like, he's second or third. Gladio and Ignis do a lot more damage than Noctis does.
Yeah, like, I mean, for the longest time, my big damaging thing was tell Gladio to slam that, to slam his two-handed sword into that dude.
Dawnhammer's pretty great.
Dawnhammer is
the damage cap with Dawnhammer a whole bunch.
Yeah, Gladio.
Nowadays, I'm mostly using Cyclone with him because I think it's hilarious to spin around and around in a circle.
But in a similar vein, I feel like the recovery tree after a certain point is not that useful, and I feel like the entire magic tree is a waste of time.
Yeah, I spent a lot.
I also felt that way about the magic tree,
and that makes me very sad.
Like,
magic itself is not a waste of time, but the ascension abilities for them are.
I generally feel like magic is not worth my time, but I don't like magic.
Like, magic is super, super strong, but the tree does not do you very many favors.
And I mean, you can only have so many spells created and so much of the stuff to make the spells out of. So you might as well use your spells and make more spells. And you can always get more elements when you camp, or just use one of the weapons that drains elements out of enemies. So yeah, it's awesome.
Magic just feels like this mini game that I just don't care about.
And you don't have to in this game.
Yeah, no, like, I mean, I'm completely effective bouncing between things while I'm killing them, and telling Ignis to mark things.
I liked having some magic in my back pocket so that I could end fights that I didn't want any part of.
Yeah. Like, every so often, it's really nice to tell that huge group of Imperial battle droids that just dropped out of the sky, have some lightning.
Yeah, have some lightning.
No, I'm not doing this.
We're done. Like,
God, I love Imperials. I just got to say this. I love when a dropship full of Imperials comes from the sky. It's like, it's party time for me.
Wow.
This is why I quit playing the game. Is that.
Like, I love this. Like, nope. I'm going to get so much experience. And I am going to run amok slaughtering Imperials. It'll be great.
I enjoy beating them up now, but there was a while there where I was, like, right there with Grace. That I was dreading them falling out of the sky.
Chapter 2 and the start of Chapter 3, while I was still in, like, the teens-ish.
And that's exactly where I was.
Imperials.
Awful.
Yes. They're
Okay,
totally until you get past like early to mid 20s.
Well, so maybe this is part of it. Like, I was 17 when I left
chapter 1.
Yeah, when I took the boat to start the proper part of the game.
Yeah.
So maybe like at that point I ran amok, like, because stuff wasn't that hard.
So I played through New Game Plus this past week, just so it would be fresh in my mind. And so like I rolled into the game in the mid 90s, and it's a very different experience because those things are not a challenge. Like, they're mostly getting one shot by sword attacks because they don't really scale, but it means that when you're first seeing them, they're terrible unless you manage to break past that like mid-teens bit where they're really annoying. But yeah, I definitely know the like, oh, I hear that stupid airship noise. I'm so tired of hearing that stupid airship noise. It's going to be like a 10-minute challenging fight.
See, I don't usually hear the airship noise. Just Prompto or, Ignis alerts me. Oh, there's a Magitech engine.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the point
Imperial's above us.
There's a point where I would just hit sprint and just run until...
God damn it, no. Call the Chocobo. Get the hell out of here.
Yep.
I
Chocobos
feel...
are the best, by the way.
No, they're awesome.
Chocobos.
Like, I especially like it when it drops Magitech, because Magitech is fun to kill.
I do like that it starts to scale. There's a point where it becomes apparent that you are stronger than the Imperial military, and they still drop troops on you, but it's very rare that they drop very challenging ones. But they do drop stuff that you might want to kill.
Yeah,
like,
I'm getting Imperial assassins now that are in their 40s.
Those things are mean. Those things are legit mean.
The problem with the drop troops in early levels is that not so much the ones with melee weapons as the ones with the guns.
Yes,
it's the snipers. Dealing with those snipers,
yeah, those guys are mean.
Is awful.
I tend to
I can just
warp over to them,
from one to the next and murder.
Yeah,
yeah. Early on, it was terrible.
Yeah, I mean, a huge part of the combat is warp strike, and warp strike.
Getting good at lock target.
Yeah, it's like locking a target and warp striking it. To that effect, I don't know why wait mode is not on by default, and I don't know why wait mode doesn't have more options for its use.
It was added as an afterthought.
I guess it was added as an afterthought, but it doesn't, like, so much of the game doesn't make sense unless you're using it.
I disagree.
I don't use wait mode.
I wasn't using it and found it kind of annoying when it was on.
How would you possibly know what things' weaknesses were, or target weak points on creatures, or any of that?
By moving the camera and hitting R1?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, but like, I don't even know how to see the weakness of a target without wait mode. Like, there's an entire tree.
Once Ignis analyzes it, then when you're locked onto it, you will see its weaknesses.
Yeah, like when I always just mark as the first attack.
Oh, see, with wait mode, you scan things yourself.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, no,
I do it for you in active mode.
Right, I just mark, and the awesome thing about mark is then I also get to go, warpy between a bunch of targets at the same time.
Yeah, I mean,
that's why I find it funny when you say Regroup was the only tech you used for Ignis, because some of his others are really good.
Mm-hmm.
I guess mark was totally meaningless to me because I was doing all of that stuff via wait mode.
Yeah, so it does a lot of things.
I mean, and I did invest, not heavily, but I did invest a bit into the wait mode tree.
Wait mode just felt like VATS to me, and something I never want to use. Because screw VATS.
Tam and I.
Yeah, it really feels like
I'm all about wait mode.
Yeah. I hate VATS so much.
I want to be able to stop and think about what I'm doing for a moment.
It took some time to get used to what was happening when I turned it on, right? Like, because it wasn't immediately intuitive. Like, when does wait mode start and stop? Like, once I figured out, like, oh, if I just stop moving, then it will wait. But it didn't communicate that very clearly initially.
And it took a bit for me to figure out how to reliably warp to the warp points with wait mode turned on.
Yeah.
Because you basically got to find them and keep moving so wait mode doesn't come on while you're looking for the thing, and then warp to it.
Yeah, that was the other problem with wait mode is if you were trying to like progress a scene, it would keep interrupting it in itself, and that was kind of frustrating.
That is annoying when it
When
suddenly comes on in the middle of someone saying something.
Yeah, and I sort of developed the habit of block because holding defense, the defense button would keep things moving.
Keep it from coming on, yeah.
But yeah, I would like if I had a wait mode button that I could press.
Yeah, rather than just you have to be stuck still.
Yeah, like I think it would be better if it were more like VATS.
And I just don't even know how somebody plays with VATS.
But like the thing that I'm doing with wait mode is I'm being extremely precise about my attacks. Like I did a lot of weapon swapping. I would do a lot of mid combo weapon swapping. It really helps the whole air dash game because I'm like mid-air, mid combo and switching targets with very, very tight precision. I think it's possible to play without it, but I vastly prefer it. I mean, I also really, really hate ATB gauges in other Final Fantasy games, where like if I don't navigate this menu fast enough, then I lose my turn.
Well, yeah, I mean, like wait mode makes sense in those games. It just like I don't know, like this is an action game to me with Final Fantasy Cool World.
Yeah, I mean, I played it. In fairness, I did play it very significantly like an action game through a lot of it, but wait mode would give me the breathing room I needed to make my next precision attack rather than just picking the next target in line, which I didn't know.
I will say, like, the only time that I ever like stopped things to get a breather, I would pop open the item menu. Like if I wanted to look around real quick and see what was going on, I would occasionally pop open the item menu, but it was more an on-demand thing because the item menu pauses.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe I was doing something similar to the wait mode there, but just like only doing it every so often.
Yeah.
Like if I needed to find how to get an angle on something to warp to, I'd pop open the item menu and then spin my camera and see. But like it was super rare that I was actually doing that because mostly I was driving based on the mini map and looking at where the red dots were on the mini map.
I get into a lot of the stuff later where I really cared about precision strikes and specifically pulling off precision combos. And so I really wanted to be hitting the right target at the right time in the right place with my big attack because I was setting up like a 3-stage thing.
I imagine Magic feels a lot less horrible if you're doing wait mode.
Yes.
Because Magic just feels like a dumpster fire if you're trying to do it in action mode, to me at least. Because like, oh, I'm going to lose all this opportunity time to cast this spell on a target, while hopefully the rest of my party doesn't do something stupid.
I mean, it's a big AoE, and it's a ton of damage if you build the spell right.
Like, I'm mostly thinking of the times where I absolutely had to use Magic, like on the Behemoth fight, where the one that you get from the hunt. Yeah. And I'm like, this is horrible. I don't want this on my bar anymore. I'm just going to do weapons. I just find it interesting because it's like, basically, I'm playing a totally different game. That's what it sounds like.
It's one thing It's one thing that I really like about it, though, is that you can play the game like Ash and I played the game with a completely different primary weapon, and
something spear something.
Yeah, like I alternated between spears and sword.
Which sword?
The engine blade thing.
Okay.
I alternated between whatever it was weak to.
No. There were some weapons that I would never use. Like, I don't care about the two-handed sword because it's too slow, and I will never use the daggers because daggers.
I used the daggers, the one-handed sword, and the two-handed sword.
I use daggers and spear. I really like the spear a lot.
Spear was amazing.
So I was spear, the two-handed sword, and the one-handed sword primarily.
So I was the only one using the auto crossbow.
I gave that to Prompto, and everything was good.
Yeah, so I gave that to Prompto.
I've tried the mechanic stuff a little, but yeah, Prompto.
I did not really like using those, no.
I never even
none of
tried
them have worked for me.
I was like, oh, this is a Prompto weapon. Here, Prompto. I did use a for a bit.
Maybe once Sid's upgraded them some. I don't know. But
yeah, well,
I do use the pistol, a decent bit.
I got the item for auto crossbow plus, so I started using that.
Yeah, I never used it. I don't even know what it does, honestly. I know Prompto presses that button every so often.
It is a big. Its main attack is a big AOE, and it doesn't actually dash you. It just you stand still and shoot people with it when you're using triangle.
Oh, weird. Okay.
So that's the weird thing about
Yeah, you have no warp strikes with those.
Mechanics weapons. Yeah, they have like a secondary attack.
Which
mode.
I mean,
secondary attack is what you would think it would be by the name.
Yeah.
The primary attack is just like a weird AoE thing.
I could not. There are a handful of like the armature weapons that didn't have a warp strike, and I could not use them.
Some of them, on the other hand, have amazing warp strikes.
It's true, and I
probably need to try some of the armature weapons because I really haven't used them at all yet.
It wasn't until much later in the game when I was forced to use one that I really got a handle for them, and then I wished I'd using them.
One you are forced to use is actually one of my least favorites.
It is, I agree. But it got me to try them, and so I found a whole bunch that I thought were really cool.
I equipped armature weapons, but didn't use them because I didn't like their health drain effect.
Yep, that was my problem with them.
That I've been concerned about. Yeah.
But they, even if you've just equipped them, they bump your stats up.
Do a stat boost, yes.
Yeah, they have really good stat boosts.
I always have one equipped. I just never end up using it.
Yeah, I mostly use them as stat sticks.
I use the two-handed sword as a stat stick and for warp striking. To the point where I kind of got into the habit of hitting the warp strike button and switching to whatever weapon I actually wanted to use mid-flight. And so I would get the bonus warp strike damage from the two-hander and then to a different weapon.
They have a DLC weapon that changes the warp strike animation a little bit and also gives it ridiculous damage. And I was using that as well.
I'm intrigued.
Ragnarok, if you got the it's just on the PSN for some reason.
It's amazing.
I'll have to give it a shot.
It really is amazing.
More effective. It basically caused me to stop using two-handed swords because warp striking it with it was more effective than one.
It's like ridiculously powerful.
But only on warp strikes. Otherwise, it's just sort of a mid-grade sword.
Right, but like if you're using warp strikes to assassinate horrible targets that you don't want to stick around, it is awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of which, that reminds me that there's that one sequence which you guys might not have gotten to, but there's a pretty cool stealth sequence in the earlier parts of the game.
The game had a stealth sequence that I didn't hate, so it has that. That's that in its favor.
It had a stealth sequence I didn't hate, and then later it had a stealth sequence that I hated with the passion of 1,000 burning suns.
Yep.
So okay, yes, we agree here.
So stealth sequence so like the thing I would call a stealth sequence was when I was hunting the behemoth.
Nope.
No.
Not that.
Okay.
I figured you were talking about invading the Imperial Fortress.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the behemoth bit was really cool.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, that was cool.
But yeah, there's a bit where you basically have to make it into an Imperial Fortress and you're trying to avoid being seen. And so it involves, avoiding some spotlights and using a takedown maneuver. And so
it's using warp strike as an assassination technique, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
Which, that was a part where I was like, I'm loving what I am doing here. This is sweet.
A much later chapter has a much worse stealth sequence.
Yes.
Yeah,
and I assume straight up fighting isn't an option.
You can.
Fighting
is totally an option.
Fighting is absolutely an option. It is the option that I took.
Yeah,
you can absolutely just not stealth and just kill everything that you run into. Like it'll be a little slower, but you can absolutely do it. Like
there's
this is all like these things are extra powered because of this materia, whatever engine, Magitech engine thing.
And you're like, whatever, I'm gonna break them anyway.
They're like level 17 or something, so yeah, you can just wreck them.
Yeah, there's no point. There's no point where you are forced to stealth sequence.
It's just simpler, and you'll get some bonus AP if you do it the stealthy way.
So one of my favorite things that was like really short was when I was helping Core break into a base. It was early on. And like
Core
there's stuff on top.
You break into a base.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
Look, that's not how it went down. I'm sorry. I helped him break into the damn base.
I think I was
because
back.
like I loved the part where like there were snipers up on catwalks, and I would warp strike up to the catwalk and then just run amok on the catwalk.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, I
Warp
ran into the
strike is
problem there that I would
incredibly
warp
fun.
strike up to the catwalk and immediately like fall off of the catwalk.
You could
instead of
only
landing on
jump
it.
up in certain areas, it seemed, because like that happened to me a couple times too. But like if I warp striked like in a corner, it would absolutely take me up there.
So other hinterlands area thing. Had I had a brief conversation about this with Kodra and some other people, but like this is the first game, or one of the only games I've played where I care about what my party is eating.
Yeah.
Like I care about them
Yeah.
sleeping, I care about them eating, and I really like that mechanic.
Yeah, like I'm explicitly like even if I'm at like I might be at a parking area where there's a caravan or a motel or whatever, and I will explicitly go find the nearest campsite because I want to camp out so Agnes can make us delicious food.
Yeah, and like sometimes I'll want to camp out, and sometimes I'll want to check into a hotel and get like a really restful night's sleep because I got a bunch of XP or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so like resting in different ways and doing different things while resting felt really good.
Yeah.
Also the party member, like you're staying here for a night and you're gonna have a little vignette with X party member. All of those are fantastic and I love them.
Yeah, every one of those that I've experienced I really liked.
The Catoplebus, or however you say that.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Prompto wants a picture of a catoplebus. Close up. Okay.
I don't think I got that.
I didn't get that one. I got the other Prompto one.
I think you specifically. I assume you have to specifically camp at the Alstom Slough campsite because that's where the catoplebus is.
Well, and
it will
like
trigger it.
I don't know, like there was. I guess for me, like this game, I played it a lot like I play Minecraft. Like when I'm legitimately playing Minecraft, where I was trying to do as much as I could before nightfall, and then go camp, and then do as much as I could before nightfall, and so it's basically a game of day-night cycles for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that's intentional.
I finally just now reached the point where Ignis has enough faith in my strength that he will drive at night.
Yeah.
I'm very happy about this.
That started doing really weird things to my levels, where I would push for like 2 or 3 days straight and then spend a whole bunch of money on a hotel.
I mean, I'm still going to camp every night, but now I can drive to a campsite to camp.
Incidentally, I like the trade-off benefits of camping versus staying in a hotel.
Yep. Yeah,
like,
better food versus quicker levels.
Yeah, like, oh, do I not feel strong enough? Like in general, spend some money, stay at a hotel, get a 2 or 3x or 4x experience boost.
I don't. Where could you get a 4x?
In Omniscia, I think.
Yeah, after chapter 8.
Oh, okay.
Or do I want to be more powerful next day? Eat some of Ignis's pornographically rendered cooking.
Yep.
I've never been made hungry so many times by a video.
I know. And I find myself like going and trying to find all the different like food vendors to eat their food in hopes that Ignis will come up with a recipe based on that. And it will be even more delicious.
Oh man, yes.
Because oh man, those French fries that Ignis makes.
Man. So like I always make a beeline for the little leaf icon.
Oh yeah.
Just in case there's something cool that he learns. Yeah.
That's it.
Yes. I'm like, oh my god, yes.
Yep.
My favorite one of them was killing the bonus boss of the game, like the equivalent of Ruby weapon of this game, beating it, and then collecting loot from it, and having Ignis go, I've got it. That's it. And I'm like, you can't be serious.
You have to farm Ruby weapon.
He's absolutely serious. He can
basically.
He can make. I don't remember what it is, but he'll make it.
So that kind of segues into the characters. I really did not know what I was going to think of this game, just because one of the things that I love about the Final Fantasy games that I love most have been ones with like large stables of characters and lots of different characters and like all the characters in 6,
large diverse large, diverse casts of characters.
Yeah. And here we had like 4 dudes all in black leather driving around in a car, and I really didn't know what I was, what I was going to think about these guys.
Yeah,
I love these guys.
Yeah, before I started playing, like, just from what I had heard about the game, I was very, very skeptical. Like, I was ready to hate these characters, and no, I don't hate them. I love them. They're
amazing.
Great.
Yeah,
like
they're
just
I love all of them, and
like they managed to make Prompto like the little brother without him being annoying, and that is amazing.
Yeah. Well, he starts annoying, and then you learn a little bit more, and you're like, no, you're the best.
Yeah,
you are the best.
No,
and
the first time he starts humming the music,
I want to ride my chocobo all day.
Yo, I love Prompto.
Prompto is amazing.
He's so great.
Prompto is amazing, and then like, I'm all over the place with Gladio. Like Gladio has some incredible moments.
Well, I mean, like Gladio, and I love the little character bits that you get just like while driving. Like Gladio, the big, huge buff guy with a 2-handed sword that beats the crap out of things, and he's sitting in the backseat while you're driving. He pulls out a book, starts reading.
I love that so much.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's great. Well, and my favorite is that my favorite part of that is how delicate he is with the book too.
Mm-hmm.
He's taking real good care of that book.
Like things like that.
Even though he's in, and you really get a sense for how just enormous he is as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and like also like the interactions between him and his sister also help with that.
Yeah, and it's Iris is great.
I love Iris so much.
I'm so glad because I don't like Cindy that much.
No,
she's the
kind
worst.
of annoying.
No,
I have the intense frustration that you meet the absolute worst female character in the game in the first 5 minutes, and she's terrible, and I can't stand her. But every other female character in the game, including virtually every single like random one-off side character, is awesome.
Yeah, because I got Cindy, and she was the one that had been in stuff and everything. I was like, is this going to be like the only major female character? Because oh god,
literally,
we mentioned this close to when the game came out, but Cindy really doesn't bother me that much because I have known Cindy in real life.
It's fair.
Yeah. I can only imagine if
But the other one that I admit to snap judging, when you're walking around Lestalem and you're like, what are all of these women doing wearing like bikini tops and like big puffy pants? What's going on here? And then you're like, oh no, they're all power plant work.
Yep.
They're the ones who run the power plant. They're wearing that because it's hot. And they even comment on it if you like stand around.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll even call you out on it. Like, oh, are you staring? Like, how about I put a fist through your face? Like, you try working at a power plant.
Yeah.
It's hot in there. GFY.
I don't know. I still think that character design is a little male gazy.
More than a little. Like that, my wife has remarked on Cindy and how unbelievable her model is.
No,
Cindy's the worst.
Sydney is the worst.
I'm talking about the Lestalem
the Lestalem power plant workers.
Yes,
it's a little, but not to the same degree.
Not to the same as Cindy.
I think it suffers from not having enough variation in the character model.
Yeah.
In that particular case,
they could have a little bit more variation in body type and stuff. That would help.
Yeah.
But Iris is great.
Iris is great. I love Iris.
Iris is amazing, and I got to do a dungeon with Iris in my party, and I want Iris in my party forever.
Right? Yes.
If you do a link strike with Iris, she pulls out a stuffed Moogle and bops the thing with the Moogle.
It's amazing.
I don't know. I missed having my link strikes do actual damage.
I don't care. Stuffed Moogle.
For me, it's her tech ability.
And her tech ability is amazing.
Tech ability is amazing. I
do wish that again. I wish it was a bigger and more diverse cast. I wish it was. I don't know. The whole I wish Iris was did join your party at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm torn on this, and I've been torn on this.
When the game was in development, one of the writers said something about how it would have been a different dynamic if they had included a female character in the cast full time. and at the time, it seemed like a ridiculous statement. Having played the game, it seems like a less ridiculous statement.
Yeah, and
like I can see that.
So the game that this makes me think of a lot is FF10-2.
Yeah.
And FF10-2 straight up, in a lot of ways, works because it has a small, tight cast of strictly friends.
Yeah.
And like, this game is doing the same thing. And it's coming at it from a more problematic angle because it's all white dudes, but it's doing the same thing as FF10-2. And it feels like an evolution of that game. And 10-2 is amazing.
Yeah.
People who like FF10 are going to argue with you about that.
If what?
People who like 10 may argue with you about that.
I like 10 and I like 10 too.
Yeah, I mean, I like both, and like.
But I mean, I love the job system, so of course I like 10 too.
I like the character dynamic in 10-2.
Yeah.
And so with Mass Effect coming out, this game has gotten me thinking. This game has made me rethink the way I feel about romantic relationships in RPGs. Because, wow, would I have never included Ignis or Prompto or possibly even Gladio in my party if I could swap them out for other characters. But they have so many interesting interactions that I would not have gotten to.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I would have dropped Prompto or Ignis for Iris in a heartbeat and missed out on a whole lot of really deep character interaction in the pursuit of let's have like this potential romantic interest character in my party all the time. And it's exactly the way I play. I found that it's exactly the way I play Mass Effect. I wonder, like, how much have I missed in Mass Effect because of that? And I suspect it's a lot. And sort of forced me to reevaluate the way I approach just any RPG now. What have I been?
Yeah. The downside of having all those different character choices is having to choose not to use a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, I mean, invariably, I pick 2 or 3 that I like the most immediately. And a character that isn't introduced in the first, 5 hours of the game has to be so amazing that I'm willing to drop one of my party members, and then I drop that other party member forever.
Yeah, that's what happened with me in Dragon Age Inquisition, because basically, the second I met Dorian, I never played with Solus ever again.
Yeah.
Because Solus was only there because I felt like I needed some form of healing magic.
Yeah.
And once I could get that from anyone else, literally anyone else, I just dropped him by the wayside. And I don't know, I liked Dorian.
So people love Vincent Valentine and Yuffie in FF7, and I've never used either of them in my party because they come too late.
Because they show up so late, yeah.
I made a point to use Vincent Valentine, but just because he was cool looking.
Yeah.
I'm okay with them not introducing characters and you have to switch out your party and that thing. I just wish I wish there was some more diversity in the cast.
Yeah.
But I understand what they're trying to do. I think this game, again, most of my frustrations with this game come after Chapter 8.
That's a different can of worms. Is that our transition?
No, it doesn't have to. We have plenty more, I'm sure.
I feel like there's one sequence of things that I want to talk about before we get to that point, and it's the world. That's what's keeping me going, is I just love the world. I love the way it feels. I love the way it's put together. I love the mix of pseudo recognizable modern day things with Final Fantasy World.
Yes.
Yeah, I really didn't know what I would think about that, and that it works really well.
So
my favorite Final Fantasies are 7 and 8 for that reason. And I feel like this one is a return to that form that I didn't get.
Guns and swords and magic and cell phones.
Yep.
Well, and the thing is okay, I live on Route 66, and I know I've talked about this bit, but so much of what I'm seeing is completely recognizable. A couple weekends ago, we went to a friend of ours' shop in a small town to get a part changed on my wife's vehicle. And this like auto shop is not just an auto shop, but it's also like the anchor of this tiny town. Like they serve breakfast there. They have like a grocery store attached to it. Like it is so reminiscent of the kinds of stores that you see in Final Fantasy 15. And they really exist. Like that's a thing.
Okay.
Like when you're in a tiny town, the one place is where everybody gets everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically the general store.
Right.
I've mentioned that like I hugely identify with Noctis in this game, and a lot of him feeling out of his element in the world that you're running around in mirrors my feeling of the same. Like I've been up and down Route 66, and I feel starkly out of place there. Like along that whole portion of the country, one of it I've seen. And
yeah, whereas I feel like largely at home because I grew up here. Like it all seems perfectly normal to me.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the kind of place I've seen but don't belong. And I get that vibe from Noctis that it's like he's here but he doesn't belong. And it's only by the grace of his friends who are better at knowing what's going on than he is that he can get by.
Yeah. But just like little thing, like the way the world is built, like Duske, for example, like around Lestalem. I love the way that it fits into that zone. Like it's a raised area, you go through all these amazing tunnels to get to it. And then when you're up there, you're on this like really cool plateau. And I don't know, like I like the way the world works. And it like, I really enjoy roaming around it. Mostly because like it allows me to zone out and inhabit the game rather than playing a story. So it's back to the whole, this is letting me kind of build my story in the Final Fantasy world, not participate in someone else's story.
I didn't do this in New Game Plus because I was more focused, but I spent a huge amount of time having Ignis drive me places, like slow drive me places, and just looking around, just like watching the sights as the car auto drove itself.
See, I love doing that because there's so much cool stuff that's going on as you're driving around, but may not be there if you came back. So I'll have them stop the car and I'll get out and I'll fight something cool or explore like a weird hangar or...
Well, it's so nice too. Like, yes, it's an auto drive thing, but if you're driving around somewhere and go, oh, what is that? That looks neat. Like, hop out of the car and go check it out.
Stop and take a look. Yeah. I never use fast travel because I like being able to see the whole world, and if you spend on the thing, you can earn AP for driving around. So there's that too.
So
also, I like to be able to look around. And
will use it.
Maybe Ignis stops the car to let a pack of horrible giant centipedes cross the road in front of us.
Yeah.
Because that's a thing that's happened.
I will do fast travel if I'm going back to Hammerhead for something, because that's a really long drive.
It's a long drive.
I try not to go back to Hammerhead for any reason.
Sid sticks around there for a while though, so
I had to have Sid upgrade my weapons. I had to get my Ultima Blade.
I did get my Ultima Blade, but not until Sid moved.
I've still got to get some Coral Whiskers so I can upgrade the Lance. Every time I've tried to fight Corals, it has resulted in me going back to my last set.
I will say, this game reminded me of my luck in video games. Because you know how you have to get that Helix Horn?
Mm-hmm.
So in order to get the Ultima weapon equivalent, the best single-handed sword in the game, you have to, or one of, arguable, you have to break off the horn of this giant stupid unicorn thing.
Yep.
And they're not all that many of them.
Spirit horns.
And in order to do it, you have to break the horn off before you kill it.
Mm-hmm.
And you get, per attempt on these things, you get two of the bigger kinds, which is the kind that you need, before you need to basically reset. You can spawn them with a hunt, but before you have to turn in and hit the hunt and do it again. It took me 6 hours to get one.
Oh, wow. Wow. I'm sorry. I already had one in my inventory when I picked up the previous one.
Yeah.
Like the first group of spirit corns I ever fought, I got a horn from.
Yep. I farmed that stupid horn for 6 hours. It is a big part of the reason that I was level 90 some at the end of the game.
Wow. Did you spend points on the ascension thing that improves your chance of breaking off enemy pieces?
Yes, I did.
Wow. I'm so sorry.
I just RNG was like, no, you can go die in a fire, and I'm like, I almost gave up. It was the last thing I did before completing chapter 8 and going on with the rest of the game, and I almost gave up.
The thing that I have no idea how rare or not rare it is the cooking hunt thing where the guy sends you out after, various food bits. Because, by the time I realized that was even a thing, I had, 6 of them worth of things to turn in and could just turn them in one after another. So I'm not sure, was that supposed to be a rare thing, or the
first, I don't think so. I think you had actually found the monsters that drop those things.
Apparently, yeah.
Before you got those quests, I had not. I picked up each, one quest and went and found the thing, and then the next one was something that I had never seen before.
Okay, so is this the point where we should probably transition over to talking about spoilery things?
Seems like it.
I will give my last piece of advice to you guys, and what I was thinking this entire time: don't leave the hinterlands. Just don't leave the hinterlands.
I'm going to give the exact opposite advice to that.
Absolutely, I'm going to give the complete opposite advice to that, which is probably going to set the tone for the second half of the show.
Yeah, I already tried to leave the hinterlands, but it made me the most miserable person ever. So I'm back in the hinterlands.
So what I will say is, after chapter 8, the game stops being about wandering. The game stops being about wandering and doing random stuff and so on, and becomes a straight shot to the end.
So is chapter 8 where you finally get on a boat?
Chapter 8, to complete chapter 8, you do finally get on a boat.
Okay.
And that is the point at which, you can always go back to the hinterlands, and it's really easy to do, but it's the point at which, from a story perspective, there's no going back.
Right.
And if you are wondering when do I know I should stop doing story content to finish up my side quests or whatever, that's when. And even then you can go back and stuff. So it's not that big a deal, but if you're like me and really care about the mechanism for going back is sort of hand wavy. It's not like you take a boat back and keep on doing stuff. It's like you reminisce about the past.
I remember these things that we really did do these things. No,
yeah,
really.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
So it feels ephemeral after a certain point.
Okay, and on that note, I think we're transitioning, and I'm going to take my headset off right now.
Same here. So from me good night.
Yep, good night, guys.
I will be back, hopefully.
All right.
Are they gone?
So how about that chapters 9 through 14, eh?
So chapters 9 through 14 catapult this into being
pretty good. Good. Well, good. I hated it. Pretty good. I hated it again. Excellent.
Good. I hated it, but I saw what it was doing. Good. I hated it, but I saw what it was doing and thought it was very well executed for that. Amazing.
I really did not like chapter 9 at all. Well, take that back. I thought the way chapter 9 ended was terrible. It was one of those things where it's like, I guess I just didn't see it coming. And when they have Arden kill one of the few female characters in this game for what appears to be no reason other than to piss off the protagonist, that seems like some hot bullshit to me.
I'm pretty sure he needed the Oracle dead.
I feel like chapter 9 was hugely telegraphed. And so I went into chapter 9 knowing, I went into chapter 9 being basically 95% certain that Luna was going to die.
She wasn't going to make it.
Luna was going to die and Arden was going to kill her. Because I felt like both of them.
Thought Ravis might kill her.
The what?
Thought Ravis might kill her.
It was either going to be Arden or her brother, but she was going to die, and it was going to be at the hands of one of those. And I went into that chapter being 100%, almost 100% assured of that.
That's depressing to me. That's depressing to me that, and this is the thing, is it's like, we have I am very sensitive to this stuff right now, but like we have been telling stories where the murder of women is there to act as a plot device to motivate the protagonist. And
I don't feel like that
when
was
that
the
happened,
story.
it felt gross.
See, I did not. I felt like there was a whole ton of evidence supporting the idea that multiple parties wanted her dead for reasons that had absolutely nothing to do with Noctis.
But that's not. So there's you can like litigate this type of stuff, but ultimately from the like construction of the story, from how the player is interacting with the story, that's how it played out.
I don't agree. That's not how it played out for me at all.
Well, that is how it played out, but I disagree that this is inherently gross.
Yeah, I'm also there. I mean, we had the discussion, and like I feel like you can make the argument that killing a character in such a way that it motivates another character to push forward for revenge or for justice or for whatever is inherently gross, and we should never do it. I think that cripples storytelling.
There's a subtle difference there. Killing the protagonist's primary love interest is distressingly common.
I agree. Yes,
yeah.
I agree with that. But I also have. I guess I'm coming from a place where I've seen way too much plot armor.
I feel like you can do stuff like this in other ways. Like you don't have to have it be plot armor. But this, again, it was telegraphed. You guys saw it coming. I didn't, but I probably should have. I was actively putting my faith in the storytelling of Final Fantasy 15 here. I figured it like, hey, yes, you don't have a lot of female characters in it. None of the like playable cast is, but hey, maybe this Luna character will come in, and when we get to her, she'll be a more important part of the story, and maybe she'll become part of the party. It seemed so objectified to me when that happened. It was like, you have literally done we are doing all of this work through chapters 1 through 8 to get to chapter 9 so that we can finally meet with Luna. And then as soon as you meet with her, before you really interact with her at all, she's killed off by the big bad to raise the stakes. I feel like they raised the stakes in many other ways that I think were even more interesting, that were actually more impactful. Like Ignis losing his vision was a way more interesting and impactful way of raising the stakes through that scene than Luna's death.
I agree.
And it just took the wind out of my sails. I was like, I just did not. I was angry and upset, and it's like I trusted this game to be better than it, and it let me down.
I guess for me,
it was
Luna's death was telegraphed like almost from the word go for me. Just the way she operates, the way she communicates, every scene that you see her in, she knows stuff that she's not telling Noctis, and she knows the stakes. And it becomes apparent at that point of the game and through the rest of the game that she is not surprised by any of this. Like,
I mean, her not being surprised, her being aware that she is going to have to be annihilated doesn't make the fact that the story compelled her to be annihilated any better.
I guess. I don't know.
So I also compare this to... I feel like I compare this to another... Final Fantasy has
really
a lot of...
obvious parallel is FF7, but there are a lot of characters in Final Fantasy that die.
But I actually think the more interesting parallel is FF5. But notably...
I don't feel like...
Gallo's death in FF5 is basically not impactful because he's replaced immediately.
100% agreed. There's zero impact to Gallo's death in FF5. Like, it has absolutely no emotional weight whatsoever for me.
What more impactful in FF5 is parts of the world map getting destroyed near the start of Act 3.
That's true.
Yeah.
The characters react that way as well.
That's true.
I also would point out that Eris is more impactful because you've actually gotten to spend time with her.
But you haven't. Like, I mean, unless you've gone down some very specific paths in FF7, she has been a presence mechanically, but
she's been a presence story-wise too. She's been a constant member of your party.
That's what I mean. Mechanically, she's in your party.
She's
in terms
also...
in terms of actual content that you experience with Eris as a character, it's not that much more than FF15, because there's a ton of Luna Noctis flashbacks.
There's a ton of flashbacks.
But that's still time spent with that character.
I mean,
you have
you don't have the agency over it. I would argue that you spend way more time with Eris.
You don't have a lot of agency in JRPGs in general.
You don't.
Putting that out there.
But you feel like you do.
Yeah, but
That's fair.
I mean, I guess.
I feel like I have more agency when I am moving my character around than when I am watching a cutscene. When I'm moving my character around, I'm leaned forward, I'm pressing buttons. When I'm watching a cutscene, I'm leaned back, I'm just taking it in. Those are completely different ways of interacting with the game.
And I feel like there is virtually no time spent in FF7. And I love FF, but there's virtually no time in FF7 where you are actively engaged in such a way that Eris is an active member of anything. Her interactions, your interactions with her are every bit sitting through cutscenes and clicking through text. Other than the mechanical, she is technically a party member and you execute commands with her. But like, there's no personality or any character development that happens there. It's just combat.
Oh, I strongly disagree here. I feel like the fact that you are going through stories like you are, again, it depends on how you play these games, but I tend to like sort of view myself as the protagonist. So you are going through like Eris's neighborhood, like you're going through her church, you're meeting with her friends, you're going through, you spend almost the entirety of the first disc going on adventures with her.
I remember the first disc very differently. There's a brief vignette where you have her along with you when you're trying to make your way back to your party.
You have her along with you when you're doing the Don Corneo stuff.
Yeah,
you have her along with
that's part of the I'm trying to get back to my party sequence. Like you're trying to get back to Avalanche to get back on track to the whole, shutting down Mako reactors like main plot, and she's sort of abetting you in that, and then winds up deciding to come with you. I mean, yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on there, certainly.
Whereas in Final Fantasy 15, all you are doing is trying to go to see. She is the objective.
I don't know. I feel like there's all of the pen pal stuff. There's a bunch of the memories that there's a bunch of the memory flashbacks. I feel like there's less time, but more higher fidelity interactions. I get a much better sense of Luna as a character in FF15 than I do as Eris as a character in FF7.
Yeah, I guess I think it's just because you actually, Eris is part of your team. That's why it was different for me.
Yeah. And I can totally see that.
And this, Luna isn't part of your team. Luna is the person you are trying to reach. And when you finally get to Altissia, you finally meet her, you have a cutscene, a fight, and then she is dead. And it's like, that felt like that, well, my common complaint for all of chapters 9 through 14 is that felt rushed, other than chapter 13. But I also feel like 9 through 14 felt kind of unfinished.
I feel like it felt...
I don't agree.
I don't agree.
I liked those. They were way more linear than the earlier chapters.
That's true, yeah. Maybe that's why they felt
that.
I did too. I liked the game. I liked the game okay until I finished chapter 9, at which point I didn't love Chapter 9 because it was predictable for me. I thought it was gorgeous, and I thought the Leviathan fight was really cool and fun. And then
the Leviathan fight.
The what?
I actually did not really like the Leviathan fight.
I kind of liked flying around. I thought it was, but it was the spectacle of Chapter 9 was amazing. And then from Chapter 10 on, it was this escalating emotional roller coaster for me. And it felt linear, but it didn't feel unfair. I feel like there's a lot more that they could have done and that they wanted to do, but I also don't feel like what they had left was unfinished. It didn't feel like Xenogears.
I don't know. I feel like they clearly wanted to. I think they needed to cut down the scope of the first overworld and have a second overworld, because one of the things that they
clearly wanted to do that.
Yeah. One of the things that, and this is one of the things they could have done then, is show the day-night cycle altering, which is, I think, what they wanted to do.
Does.
Yeah, it does.
The game does.
As you go through the chapters, your nights start coming earlier.
Yeah.
Sure, but you don't have the random encounters. You don't have the overworld where the random encounters that happen at night really make that impact.
I guess that depends on how much you did or didn't level up.
Yeah.
Iron Giants were never not impactful.
What?
Iron Giants were never not impactful for me.
Oh. Did the Iron Giants still only... I thought the Iron Giants started showing up, like, in those chapters. I didn't realize they were only showing up at night.
They're only showing up at night.
Mm.
They're basically the whole time.
Yeah.
These are punishment for staying out too.
And then if you can beat those, they are like, "Oh, okay. You think you're hot shit. Have a red giant."
Yeah, I did not notice the day-night cycle changing. In chapter, what chapter would that have been?
I think it was chapter 7
like
where I started thinking, it's 3 o'clock. Why is the sun going down?
Yeah.
Oh.
It as the game progresses through chapters, there's less day and more night until there's only night.
Yeah. I didn't realize that started happening in chapter 7.
That starts happening in chapter.
I think that's happening early.
Yeah, it starts happening as soon as Insomnia falls.
Yeah, and so I clearly did not notice this. I think that would have become more obvious if you had the additional overworld. Like, I thought it was cool when you finally get back and like it's just permanently night.
Yeah.
And that's like kind of miserable and depressing, but interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how I felt about the whole time skip thing.
I liked it.
It felt very jarring to me.
It was a little weird to me.
It was a little weird.
I was thinking, this is just like FF6, and then the title of the chapter is World of Ruin. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
fine.
Yeah. It's definitely an FF. I really like the time skip because it lets everybody age a bit, and like
wasn't expecting it to be 10 years.
The difference between like young kid Noctis and the difference between Prince Noctis and King Noctis is stark.
I guess
I found it really powerful.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I almost wish that they could have figured out a way to do that more gradually, because it was like you've spent this entire time with this one character and then suddenly let's just age them up 10 years. Like, so
there's a thing about the storytelling in this game in general that I found a little weird at first, because basically it's from Noctis' perspective always.
Yes.
Which means a lot of background stuff you just don't get unless you happen to find the one little thing where they describe it in like a paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of I'm really interested to see episode Prompto, episode Gladio, episode Ignis, and like I will 100% pick up FF15-2 Luna's story, because that's totally different.
They're never gonna make that.
I don't know. Nobody thought they were gonna make it FF10-2.
I mean, okay, that's fair.
Like, but if they released if they released episode Luna, I would play that too, because because the game is so ferociously only from Noctis's perspective, there's a whole lot of story that you have to fill in.
Yeah, and
I part of me really loves that because I'm piecing together what seems like an inscrutable enemy or a series of enemies, and like
it eventually stopped bothering me.
It definitely didn't stop bothering me in time for Prompto to suddenly reveal that he's an MT, and I'm like, that seems like it should have had more build up to it. That felt very, very jarring.
I will say, throughout Chapter 13, Arden did a pretty good job of making me the video game villain I hate most, passing Handsome Jack for this title.
100% agreed. Arden passes Handsome Jack for villain I hate most in Chapter 13.
I don't know. Handsome Jack is way more relatable to me than Arden. Arden is doing like his sort of super villain thing. Like Handsome Jack is the like
Handsome Jack I relate to,
I love
but
Handsome
I hate
Jack
Arden.
because he's such a banal. I love him so much because he's such a banal form of evil. He's like the evil that is a mid-level manager.
Yeah. See, I like Arden because he has a plan and he's competent. Like everything, he is a mastermind villain who is actually a mastermind.
So why does he wait for the one person who could kill him to amass all of the power?
Because there's that whole section because he needs Noctis.
Well, he doesn't need Noctis. He just wants to show that he's so powerful that he can kill the line of kings like at their height of power. That is like classic supervillain incompetency.
No, he is a member of that line.
Yes.
He's killing who he sees as a usurper.
Yes.
So that he can have the power that he was supposed to have the whole time.
But he even makes a comment like it wouldn't be worth it to kill you if you didn't have access to your full power. No. That is, I don't call that supervillain competency.
Odin spends a whole bunch of time explaining that. Like Odin, he's not being flippant. He's literally saying I don't get the benefit unless you have full control over your power, because he's going to eat you and steal your power. That's his end game. If you don't have that much power, he doesn't.
Odin?
Like that's what Odin. No, Arden. Odin tells you that Arden.
Bahamut, you mean?
Bahamut, sorry.
Okay, I was trying to figure out who we were
Wrong
talking
summon.
about. I don't
Wrong
remember
summon.
Odin.
The big summon. Anyway, Bahamut tells you that that Arden is basically planning to eat you and take all of your power, which is why he wants you to be powerful. He wants you to have the height of line of Liu Kang because he's going to consume it. Like he's not like that isn't a flip line where he's boasting. That's literally the power he gains is from stealing yours. Like the reason he's subtly helping you along throughout multiple points of the story is so that he can have a bigger feast later.
Yeah, that's not quite what I got from that, but I'd have to go back.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I caught it in the second playthrough. Like Bahamut is not super clear.
Like I feel like that's the thing is I did not think Arden was a very competent villain.
Oh, I
thought
he was
Arden
an incredibly competent villain.
I thought Arden was a very classic supervillain, and I thought he was doing like the Hannibal Lecter mind games thing throughout Chapter 13. And I was just like sick of it because I've seen it before.
Yeah, for me, that was Arden had a plan that was, centuries in the making. He knew what the deal was, and he needed to execute it. And he basically almost got away with it. And it's really just only by the thinnest of margins that he didn't. And I really liked that I didn't have a grasp of his plan until he decided to let me in on it because he thought it was too late for me to do anything about it. When he was trying
That's kind of sort of a classic thing.
It is a classic supervillain thing. But even that, I felt like he had a purpose in doing so because he was trying to goad me into fighting him so that he could kill me and win. Like, his goal is the last line of Lucian Kings needs to have their full power so that I can consume it. I can be the heir to the line. I could go back to being the heir to the line of Lucian Kings and have all of the power I need to right the curse that I had I've been placed under forever. Because his end game is ridding himself of it. And it's a terrible curse.
I don't know if I entirely agree with that take.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I feel like this is a thing where, again, maybe it's just because they wanted it to be all from Noctis's perspective, but this story seems like the fact that I am sitting here having just beaten the game like 2 days ago, and I'm like, this doesn't sound familiar, tells me that maybe this story might not have scanned well.
No offense, but it sounds like you checked out at chapter 9 and didn't care about the game after that. And I'm not surprised that you would miss a whole lot of story stuff in that situation.
I mean, so what was the, like, I felt like I just kept getting like weird pulls. Like, what was the thing that was supposed to like clue me in that what's his name? Prompto was like a robot, and what was supposed to clue me in that
he's not Arden. He's not a robot.
He's not a robot.
What is he then?
He's a genetic experiment.
He's a person.
Yeah.
Okay.
With a barcode on his wrist.
Okay.
Yeah.
He wears a wristband to cover this, so you can't see it in any of his costumes except his last one.
He's a person.
There are not a lot of hints to prior to the reveal.
No, I
other than Arden taunting you about it.
Yeah, Arden taunts you about it.
Because Arden does taunt you about it.
Yeah. Arden taunts you about it subtly early on and then much less subtly later on.
So I did a thing where I got into like a fight scene when he was taunting me something about Prompto, and then it cut the half of the dialogue out.
He takes a jab at Prompto really early on that seems totally out of nowhere. Like back in the hinterlands, he takes like this weird random jab at Prompto of all people. And I don't think that's sufficient. I don't think that's sufficient foreshadowing. Like it was still a surprise, but it was also like, why did you single out Prompto? Like, are you just picking on him because he's the smallest one? Like, you dick. But no.
Yeah, this said, like, mostly I liked the chapter 14's like conclusion. I felt like some of the stuff was weird. Like, as I was saying, I felt like I felt like the time skip was a little weird. I felt like I don't agree that I thought Arden had a particularly like cunning master plan. I basically didn't see him as much better than
successfully directed
most Final Fantasy villains.
Most Final Fantasy villains win. Like, this is a series that has an overwhelming tendency to have the villains get what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Then they get murdered by the heroes.
Yeah.
But before that, they get exactly what they're looking for.
And Arden doesn't.
Mostly he does.
I mean,
entirely.
Arden. That's the thing, is like Arden succeeds in what most Final Fantasy villains succeed in, which is like bringing the world to an apocalyptic state.
Yeah.
But no, his end game does not complete because he can't kill you.
Yes.
Which, like, yeah, that's the interesting thing, is like his end game is all focused around you.
Yes. I have a theory that Prompto is seeded by Arden as essentially a manipulable puppet, or one that he hopes is manipulable for a long-term plan. But I don't have a lot other than it's my picture of Arden and makes a few pieces that I don't know where they fit. I don't have a lot to base that theory on. I just think it's an interesting one. But like Arden pretty competently orchestrates the fall of the most defended city in the world.
I mean, yeah.
Pretty much orchestrates the entire plot prior to, chapter 15, basically.
Pretty much,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he orchestrates that by taking over the most powerful army in the world.
Yeah,
yes.
Well, manipulating his way up through that army.
Sure.
Over a very long-term plan.
The thing is, like, Kingsglaive definitely helps. Like, I would not have gotten through this game if it weren't for Kingsglaive. Kingsglaive is a fantastic movie. But I do feel like the game does not do a good job at showing you what is going on. Like, again, like you get to Arden and it's like, oh, and now basically the entire Imperial army forces have been like decimated. The king's been killed, and it's like, huh, That's
You
interesting.
can find that
Just
out
like-
before you get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, through the newspaper clippings. Yeah, and I read some of those, but it's all happening sort of off screen.
Yes, because again, the storytelling is entirely from Noctis's point of view.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting stylistic choice.
Like I said, it took a while for it to stop bothering me because at first it did a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it kept.
I like it.
bothering me.
I like it because I like it story to piece together. Like I frequently am like, all right, well I know where this is story. This story has given me enough information that I know where it's going. Let's get on with it. Whereas this one kept me guessing until.
I feel like this is a thing you have actually complained about in the past, however, that withholding information is not good storytelling.
Yes. When I feel like that information is when I feel like the information makes the story nonsensical without it. And I feel like this one rides the line really hard on. Like it comes out on the I like it side, but yes. I mean, a big part of it is I really tire of villains who are just like ludicrously powerful mages that turn into some giant freaking stupid monster at the end, and their power is beyond ken, and you've got to defeat their tentacled monstrosity boss form that's also weirdly Judeo-Christian iconography full, and like and where they're mostly incompetent, but they just bulldoze their way through all of everything in their way because they're just that powerful. And I really like seeing an actual mastermind villain versus one who purports to be a mastermind but is really just a brute.
I mean,
Because it's not a villain you get to see very often.
I feel like I felt like that thing, like where it's like, oh, this guy claims to be a brilliant mastermind but bulldozes through everything, happened when like you actively kill him, and it's like, oh, by the way, I can't be killed. It's like, oh, okay, you're kind of just a brute.
Except he's not. Like, I mean, sure, he is sustained.
That scene did seem like him getting caught out a little bit.
Yeah, like I liked that because that was the bit that he didn't plan for. I was like, oh crap. Well, I guess I'm glad I had this backup plan, and I'm gonna laugh it off like, hey, maybe I still won, but it's clearly shaken him a bit. I think I wish that chapter 14 had Iris in it. Iris. She seemed like such a conspicuous absence from that chapter.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure why she wasn't there.
I don't know why she wasn't there.
I mean,
but she totally should have been.
She wasn't there because the story says she's in Thalen, but she really should have been there.
She really should have been there because she's such a cool character, and what she's doing at that point in the game is awesome, and I want to see more of that. And also, like, that's the perfect. I don't necessarily feel like I wanted her to be in my party the whole time, but I feel like she should have been in my party for chapter 14.
Considering the nonsense you do in chapter 14, maybe not.
Maybe not. But she's clearly a super badass, like bordering on Gladio levels of badass. And he's there.
But yes, now that we're into this point, I should also say chapter 13's quote unquote stealth section was stupid.
Oh god, yeah.
Yes.
It was terrible, and
it was awful.
I abandoned
it's
it
so bad
immediately.
The designers know it's bad and have talked about changing it.
Yeah. They're updating chapter 13 to not have that, or have something not so terrible.
Like, I get it, I get the point of the powerlessness, but that stealth section is awful.
Yeah. I feel like which is the chapter with Blind Ignis in the dungeon?
Chapter 10.
So I think chapter 10 delivers amazingly well on the thing it's trying to deliver. Like, chapter 10 is one of the most powerful one of the most powerful sections in a video game that I have played.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes, I loved it. I was frustrated that I lost access to regroup at that point.
I was frustrated for a number of reasons, but that was intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah, well...
Yeah, like, it does a good
Congratulations, game, on successfully making me feel the thing you intended for me to feel.
Yeah, like, right? It's so well delivered. It's like, yep, I'm annoyed by this, and wow, do I feel like an asshole for being annoyed by this. And wow, has the game done a good job of hitting those buttons super, super well. That being said, after that chapter, I did switch back to...
You didn't what?
After that chapter, I did switch back to read.
I couldn't.
You can when the chapter is done.
Interesting. I tried to in chapter 13 once I got my party.
Other text later. Yeah.
What?
Not until chapter. I couldn't use Ignis's other text until chapter 14.
Oh, I did not even try to change it back after chapter 13. I was like, I guess I can't use these anymore.
I was able to
use
use
sucks a lot.
I was able to use it. I'm pretty sure I was able to use it in the latter half of chapter 13 when he
didn't try then.
Back. Yeah,
I did and could not.
Interesting.
Because I was getting very frustrated with dying. The race sequence bugged out pretty fierce on me.
Race sequence.
When you're trying
the last
to
part of the car.
No. When you're trying to run to the door.
Oh.
There were actually a lot of things that bugged out on me pretty hard in chapter 13.
I didn't have that many bugs in chapter 13. I've heard of them, but I didn't run into any.
I also did not run into any. It was annoying for all the wrong reasons, but not because of bugs.
I think chapter 13 needed less fluff and more content, frankly. It really needed to spend more time explaining Luna's brother's motivations. Because I get them, finally. And they make sense, and they work. But it's really thin and really late.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mostly don't understand, where the switch happened from let's try and stop this to let's try and help Noctis. And then, the cutscenes afterwards didn't make sense. Where, she was talking to Ravis and trying to get him to, take the ring from her.
Did you find all of Ravis's letters?
No.
Okay, so
I only saw a few of them. Did not see all of them.
He's got about 5, and they're letters between him and Luna, and they really catalyze his motivations in a way that finally made sense to me. But like I said, they're really
way too late.
They're super late. It's way too late, and they're really thin. But his thing is, he knows what it means to be the Oracle. He knows that Luna is going to sacrifice her health, probably her life to fulfill the prophecy of the Lucian Kings. And he thinks that, and is going to do everything in his power to stop that from happening, because he thinks Noctis is a loser and he doesn't want to lose his sister. And through that lens, his motivations make much more sense. Until the point where he turns on Arden, and Arden is like, no, you're my puppet now. I'm going to corrupt you and make you into my puppet. But I feel like it's way too easy to miss too much of that to make it be sensible.
Yeah, I think this game, I think there were, I guess it's the interesting thing. The game spent most of its time on your characters, your party's reaction to things. And as a result, in other Final Fantasy games, you see the big world-changing events happen because you're there when they're happening. You don't see most of the big world-changing events happen in this game. They happen without you there.
Yeah. I mean, a big part of the plot is that sort of coming of age. The world is moving around you and you're not ready for it, trying to become ready for it. I mean, it's a big part of why Gladio doesn't like Ignis very much, or doesn't like Noctis very much. And why he's so snappish at Noctis for so much of the story. Because Gladio knows what's at stake and what Noctis has to become, and Noctis doesn't. And that frustrates the hell out of Gladio.
I like what Gladio trying. He just sort of comes off as an ass sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially in chapter 10, but also in the section with Titan.
Absolutely, yes. In both of those cases, he comes off as a giant ass. I kind of like that. Makes him not the mentor character. He's still deeply flawed. He knows a bit more about what's going on than Noctis does, or has a better understanding of what's going on than Noctis does. But that doesn't make him better equipped to handle it.
I will say that I think the other thing that happened is the end of the game happened, and I was already over leveled enough that nothing really posed much of a challenge. Other than chapter 13, where I died for stupid reasons.
I finished the game at level 41. The end of the game was reasonably difficult.
I left the hinterlands at level 46. So the end of the game was reasonably not.
That said, the fight before the final boss was harder than the boss.
Yes.
Ifrit is way harder than Arden.
Yes.
I did love the Arden. The Arden fight, as far as like, was this an enjoyable experience for me, is in my top Final Fantasy bosses, if not my top Final Fantasy boss.
Arden was a fun fight.
I really enjoyed the Arden fight. I think it could have been more difficult, but I really enjoyed it.
It would have probably helped if I had unlocked the right things. Like, this game would have probably helped a lot. Like, you were talking about how there are these skills that you should always unlock because they make the game fun. I didn't unlock any of the make the game fun skills.
Yeah, that would...
I unlocked stuff like, increase your magic power.
Yeah.
I had basically none of the stat ones unlocked by the end of the game.
Yep. I realized quickly that getting more I had a point where I realized that I had invested a bunch in magic and was seeing virtually no returns on it. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to spend points on other stuff. Because the combat isn't... I'm not having fun with the combat. I'm going to try fighting differently. I'm going to do some different stuff to level up because this is dumb.
Even with all of the stuff I invested in magic, I could never get myself up to like a Faraga. I only ever got up to Fira levels.
You needed to get up to that level, you needed to like expend other items, and they're mostly late game items.
Oh, weird.
And there are items that added potency.
Yeah, because like you can put 99 of whatever charge into your thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can put more items into it to add other effects.
I did not... Like, you mean the items that let me quadcast stuff?
Yes.
Huh.
You can get items later that it like triples the potency and becomes a quintcast.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, all right, now you have a quintcast Faraga.
Ah.
Note that Powercraft has basically nothing to do with this because its bonus is tiny.
Yeah. Okay.
I vehemently dislike the magic tree because it looks like a tree you want to invest in, and it is not. It's not even a little bit.
It's also one of those things where this game doesn't really let you know what stuff does.
Yeah.
This game has messaging.
It has messaging problems in its mechanics, and it frustrates me. It's a problem that I have with most Final Fantasy games. Final Fantasy games, and I think I've mentioned this before, but Final Fantasy games are for me this weird combination of dizzying highs and tragic lows. And like even my favorite one have some really awful parts and awful in a variety of ways parts. But they're usually offset. Like I love Final Fantasy VII. It's got some awful parts. I like Final Fantasy VIII, but wow, is the draw system dumb. Like
I like 10 too, but Act 4 is garbage.
Yeah. I mean, I like Final Fantasy VI, but wow, is the pacing in that game utterly terrible. And FF15 is no different for me. Like it has some parts that I deeply dislike and am very annoyed by, but all of those are offset by or as a whole they're offset by the dizzying highs I hit because I'm able to get invested enough in it that I'm willing to overlook this stuff that I really don't like in favor of the really good stuff and the really well executed stuff. Case in point, that the scene right before the very end where Noctis asks Prompto if he can see his camera was an amazing moment. Like just like an emotionally devastating moment right before the final boss fight. Where it's like, no, flip through your pictures and pick one. Noctis is going to keep it because he knows how this is going to play out.
Yup.
And he's not going to tell them because they're not going to... He's not going to tell them because what's going to happen because he knows. And he knows that they'll fight it. And nobody's got time for that.
Oh, I definitely didn't read that way. I read it that they all knew what was going to happen. Like, even Prompto at that moment's like...
afterwards. But I feel like they maybe have some idea.
Well, no, there was the like... It's because it seems kind of weird. It's like, oh yeah, let's look through all of the pictures, like right in this really tense moment, and then Prompto's like gives him like sort of a side eye, and then like, oh, sure, yeah, go ahead, man. Like,
Yeah,
it definitely has the vibe of they realize that this is going to be their last time together.
I feel like they don't quite till that happens, I guess is a better, like, I don't think Prompto gets it until Noctis says it, and he thinks about it for a moment and is like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But I'm just saying that I definitely think that they realize what's going on as soon as he starts, like, asking for the pictures.
Yeah. Sorry, I was thinking overall chapter 14.
Okay.
Like, I don't mean, like, right at the end there, it's like, oh, God, they do realize it. Also, Florence and the Machine cover of Stand By Me is
I really liked the opening and ending.
I find it interesting because prior to 13, most of the games had a vocal song that may or may not have anything to do with the plot, but was recorded especially for the game. And that's sort of the case here, but it's a cover.
Yeah.
I would also argue that Stand By Me is absolutely central to this game.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a very good choice.
It's like, when you say it may or may not have anything to do with this game, Stand By Me absolutely has something to do with this game.
Yeah.
I'm referring to previously, but yes.
Are you thinking of, so I'm thinking of like, Eyes on Me.
I was thinking of Eyes on Me specifically.
Which, yeah, that is questionably, so that is questionably anything to do with Final Fantasy, but it's definitely like a good song, iconic, but I'm not sure that it has anything to do. I can't think of any other one that.
The Decade in A is also maybe kind of sort of related to FF10, but not really. Anyway.
I hear like things are wrapped up now.
We're talking about music. We've resummoned a bell.
Yup. So, yeah, I don't know how to wrap things up since I've been out for half of the podcast.
I mean, like, final thoughts. They're probably going to be pretty mixed, but...
I mean, so I had a really, really, really good experience for 60 hours in this game, which for a game is saying something. I just did not think that I really enjoyed the way it wrapped up.
I feel like I like what I've played so far, but I also feel like I'm maybe playing a different game.
It's possible, and I think it's a really good game.
Yeah, that's the game you're playing is the game I really like.
Like, I love roaming around, exploring this world, and like I said, I tried to focus fire in on the story, but it was just making me miserable, and I didn't want to ruin this game for me.
Yeah. And I think that's a perfectly reasonable way to play it. Like, if you get to the end, great. If you don't, and just wander the hinterlands the whole time, like, I don't even think that's all that bad.
Yeah.
I think it is worth going, in your case, it is worth going to chapter 9 and then going back just so that you can unlock the secret boss, because I think you'd find the secret boss hilarious.
Oh man, is that the only way to get to the secret boss?
You have to, the secret boss unlocks when you go back, because it's for reasons. There's some...
Wow.
Did you look up the secret boss?
No, mostly I think that I could really not be bothered to go back, to be honest.
Yeah. That's sort of how I felt.
I thought that mechanic...
I agree. I agree. I think it's a mechanic. I don't like it. I still went back and did a bunch of adventuring after the fact because I really enjoyed that part of the game, but it didn't feel meaningful to me.
Yeah, like, everything felt very undercut at that point.
Yeah.
So, while I was gone, did you talk about the March game of the month?
We did not.
No, we haven't even finished our final thoughts.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if Ash wants to have final thoughts.
I enjoyed it a lot. The combat system, a lot of things in this game sort of took a while to click. Combat system was one, the plot was one, but overall I enjoy what I played.
So, ask me again later when FF7 Remake comes out. But I have had Final Fantasy VII in Shrine for a variety of reasons. I never liked Final Fantasy VI all that much. I've never been a big fan of the like chibi 16-bit sprite Final Fantasy style. Like, it just never really did much for me. I like them, but I feel I played Xenogears before I played very many of them, and I played Chrono Trigger before I played any of them, and I always felt like those were better fidelity versions of that thing. But anyway, that aside, Final Fantasy VII has been enshrined for me, or had been enshrined for me as like, this is my favorite Final Fantasy. Nothing is going to topple it. That's just how things are. It's going to be in my top favorite games of all time, more or less forever. And to my great surprise, FF15 has dethroned.
That's pretty awesome.
Like, it is, like most Final Fantasy games, it's flawed, and it's not for everyone, and it's got rough edges, but like, I've played enough Final Fantasy games to sort of expect that, and of Final Fantasy games, this one is my favorite. And it's, like I said before, it has changed the way I approach thinking about how I play RPGs, and has made me want to go back and play a whole bunch of RPGs that I've loved differently, because it's made me rethink my unconscious approach to them. In that vein, next month's Game of the Month
is another RPG,
and another RPG that has made me that I've played. It has made me rethink a lot about how I think about and how I play RPGs. It's much shorter than Final Fantasy 15, which is probably a good thing. It is Tyranny, the next game out of Obsidian, now that they're doing their own content. And it is a game in which the Dark Lord Sauron wins, and you are his legal clerk. And that makes it sound a lot darker than it is, sort of.
Optionally.
Yeah. It's a game about choice, and about meaningful choice. And I feel like it's a great counterpoint to Final Fantasy 15, which is a very linear game, and Tyranny is not that. Like, I pick it because it is an RPG where the choices you make are really, really relevant and make a huge difference in some frankly shocking ways. And so hopefully it'll be fun. Hopefully people will enjoy it.
Sweet.
I look forward to talking to everyone who plays it and having us talk about 100% different game experiences that we had, because I sort of expect that our podcast group is going to come back and be like, wow, I played this game, and somebody's going to be like, that did not happen. None of those things happened to me at all. I played a completely different game than that.
I mentioned this on our Games of the Year show because I've played it already, so I'm in the middle of a second playthrough already.
Yeah, I'm gonna be.
It'll be interesting.
It will be interesting, hopefully.
No, I'm pretty sure about it.
So yeah, Tyranny.
Cool. I'm looking forward to that show because the game is super interesting already.
I'm pretty excited about it.
Anyway, well, that was another AggroChat Game Club game show. It was one of the weirder ones, just because of circumstances.
Spoilers. Even we
care. Yeah, even we sort of care about spoiler times. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week for a normal show. Good night.
Later.
Good night.